there, it's Jonathan Herbst, founder and CEO of ScaleUp GROWTH Partners. Welcome to our Stories of Scaling Up, where I chat with owners, managing directors, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies. So today, it's my pleasure to speak to Laura Bell-Main. Laura is CEO and founder of SafeStack. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
My pleasure. And I'm looking forward to our conversations. So listen, why don't we just start by, if you can tell me a bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Absolutely. So SafeStack is a community-centric online education platform with one goal in mind. We're trying to build the team of 30 million security-minded software developers. So all that amazing technology we build every day, we need that to change the world and make it a better place, but we also need that to be secure as we go. So that's our mission. We're teaching the skills that development teams need to make that reality. So I've been doing this a little over 20 years. I've been working with very fast-paced dev teams, and we launched our product in 2020. So we're now in 45 countries, working with over 500 organizations, helping them build amazing software, but with security throughout it rather than just as an afterthought.
Okay. Now, you're based in New Zealand, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So where is your I'm off script. Where is your team based?
So we are remote, fully remote. So I'm in the beautiful far north of New Zealand. It's lovely. You should come for a holiday. But we have people in all the major hubs and lots of towns you'll have never heard of. In Australia, we have folks in Canberra, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and some in areas I have absolutely no idea which city they're near, but they're in the middle of nowhere, and apparently kangaroos like fighting. That's about all I know at this point.
You know, I live in Barrel, which is about an hour and a half southwest of Sydney. And our house is next door. I've got the house here, which is my office. And there was a kangaroo in my back garden here last week, which was
wow. There you go.
Yeah, it's only in Australia.
Absolutely.
So tell me, how would you describe your best customer, your core customer?
So I'd say, our ideal or customer profile, if you will, is these are organizations between, say, 20 engineers up to, 1,000, where they're trying to build some software that is core to their business. So, it could be that they're building that software for internal use, like an insurer, or it could be that they're a SaaS company and they're going to sell that solution to someone else. These are the types of companies that know that software quality is really, really important. And they know that security matters for either compliance or that they need to sell to bigger companies. And those companies will require them to be more secure than perhaps the young company would be. And so we work with them to make sure that instead of having to have one specialist security person who's like Batman, is going to save the day on everything, we give everyone in their dev team those skills so that security is considered in little steps all the time. And we find that builds a higher quality of software in a shorter period of time because less mistakes, less vulnerabilities have to be addressed.
So you started in the middle of COVID, is that right?
Yeah, we are a COVID baby. We went down into lockdown. There were 4 of us in the company at that time. We were bootstrapped off consultancy. We dropped 94% of revenue overnight. We had, the perfect startup situation. We all had kids and old people to look after and home loans. And so we went, well, we could wait for it to all blow over, or we can do something bold. So we turned what we'd been doing very successfully as authors and consultants into a platform that can be used globally and can scale. So we're quite proud of that. Well
done. And so, so you think about some of the actions you took during COVID that are stuck with the company. I mean, I said every action you took is stuck with the company. But, what are the key lessons you can teach other CEOs about how you operate?
I think there's a few things that we do that are a little bit different that I'm so incredibly proud of become embedded. So firstly, every decision we make, we try and make data backed. So the value we have that aligns with that is that good decisions require experimentation and high quality data. Now, as a young company, we don't always have that, But knowing we need this data gives us the ability to put that in place, and then future decisions get stronger. So we, over time, have got a really strong history of growing the amount of analysis and data we have about our product usage, about our sales, about the operations of the business, and then using that to drive really considered decisions. Because we're little, we can't waste time on, just gut instinct and seeing how it goes. We need to learn very quickly. The other thing is we check in and we communicate in a way that I don't think many companies do, because we're remote first and only. All that nuance you get from in-person conversation, the tone, the body language, all that is lost. So we do a lot of, some would call it over-communicating, but really just very transparently talking to each other, that radical candor thing of making sure that it's more important that we get it right than be right, and that we can have these open conversations, and that we can be honest. If you're having a bad day and you're distracted because, your dog has been ill somewhere, then it's much better that we have a chat and say, hey, I'm going to step away for an hour. We're going to carry on later because right now I'm not in the space to work. And it's given us a flexibility, an asynchronous nature that means we've been able to work very effectively with a very diverse group of people.
And what technology are you using for that?
So we primarily use Slack as our communications channel. Mm-hmm. I think I'm an anomaly in the company that my inbox is very heavily used, but for most folks, email is very much secondary. And then we use a few additional tools. So we're experimenting with some tools at the moment that can help provide rewards and kudos for people who show the spirit of our values, for example, or even just do something that helps everyone out. We also use Asana quite heavily for project planning. So we try and accommodate working hours, whatever they look like. So having these centralized sources of knowledge and of planning so that we can pick up whenever we come in, it has been really key for us.
Okay. So just go back to the app you're using to reward values. What's the name of that?
So there's one that is called Disco, and there is one it's got Taco in the name. These are, I will follow up after you with the Taco name. Okay. But the idea is that you can build up points, and the more points you get leads to actual rewards and prizes. And our company has some nice wellness policies already built in that this builds on top of. So, for example, everyone gets 1 day wellness leave every month. Yep. To spend on something, anything at all that makes you happy and healthy. It doesn't go out of any of your leave allowances. They get $250 a year to spend on wellness activities such as gym memberships, massages, games consoles, whatever it is that makes you happy. And finally, we also, every time somebody does a workout or something for their fitness, we donate $2 to charity. So over the course of the year, we've donated almost $3,000 this year alone, just from people doing $2 at a time, one workout at a time.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah. And for the record, for those listening, I am not a gym bunny. We are encouraging definitely not the gym bunnies to work out. So, Yeah, it's a really interesting
how companies connect with their values and how they connect with their staff with the values is, it's such a critical thing. And it's an area I work really, a lot of my time with my clients. I spend a lot of time on that. Yes, rewarding, but it's calling people out for living the values as you do. And interesting, the reward structures are quite interesting. I love what you're doing with money to charity. Etc. There's some great lessons to be learned in there.
Yeah, I hope that as we grow, we continue these things because I think, while we all love being rewarded personally, when you know what you're doing contributes to something bigger than you, that can be, that extra little nudge to do something, to keep yourself healthy and happy. And when we're all healthy and happy, we do bigger things. Yeah.
We give 1% of our revenue and 1% of our time.
Nice.
To different organisations, and it's something that really does ground the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what does the future look like, and what do you see as your main challenges moving forward?
Awesome. Well, we're on this global mission. We're trying to create this 30 million team. And the audience that we try and connect with are software development teams. So they don't like selling. They don't like marketing. This is not their crowd at all. So the biggest challenge for us coming up is how do we authentically connect with that community and show them the value of what we do, but without crossing over that line that's actually going to end up being antagonistic. So it's kind of product-led growth, and it's a lot of speaking engagements and travel and connecting with communities, and building up the network of champions and advocates in the development space who can see and know the value of what we're doing and become, the voice of us in what is a very big, very diverse community.
And growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think has been your biggest learning since you became a business owner?
I'm going to sound really cheesy for this. So, let's just be, just be me. When I first started the company, if I was to look back, I would say I was quite apologetic as a CEO. I was kind of the security nerd who had built a product company, and I was kind of like, yeah, we've done this cool thing and it's cool and all, but if you don't want to see it, that's fine too. And it was it wasn't a very good way to sell at all. I would say over time, I've become a lot clearer on our value and our mission. And I think I've made peace with the fact that it's okay to be a security nerd and a technical person and also be the CEO of a company and do strategy and finance and marketing. That's actually making me a stronger person, not necessarily detracting from where my success previously was. And that's helped me to kind of model this to my team as we're all on a bit of an adventure. We're all growing new skills that we perhaps didn't expect. And it's been good to embrace that and actually push myself to see how far I can go with this. I would never have picked this was my future, but I wouldn't be anywhere else.
So would you, if we're trying to shrink the definition, would you think you're suffering a bit from imposter syndrome?
Possibly. Yeah, I would say so. But it's a funny phrase, and I think it's one we use a lot. What I say to myself is, and apologies to listeners, please don't be offended. Sometimes I need to practice channeling my 20-something American white guy. Being a cheerleader, even if you're not certain, because being a CEO is kind of, for me, balancing two very different narratives in your head. There's the story of hope and the dream and the vision and the strategy. And then there's the reality of a young company and keeping it running and managing all of those parts. And they're very different. And so I think it's easier for me to look at what are we doing right now? That's a very practical skill that speaks to my internal engineer. But my inner American is the one that's, learning to articulate the vision and not be scared of it.
Really good lesson. Yeah. Okay. When you think of the word successful, who comes to mind first? And can you tell me why?
Oh, that's a hard question. So at the moment, my family, we just finished going to the Women's Rugby World Cup games, which were in New Zealand. And for me, looking at some of the players on the New Zealand women's rugby team, so Portia Woodman, Ruby Tui, these are women who were not paid as professionals. They were working full-time jobs around their sports, but still became world-class leaders in their space. And not just that, but very humble and authentic people. So, even looking at the coverage afterwards, they give their time, they give their energy, and they share their lessons and the space that they've created for themselves. So, they're perhaps not the big, glamorous examples, but they feel very real and very local to me right now. And I think there's a lot to be said for some of the pioneers in those sporting spaces.
Absolutely. Interesting enough, I put a blog out today talking about a leadership coach called James Kerr. And James is a Kiwi based in the UK, but he was embedded with the All Blacks for a year. And he wrote a book called Legacy.
Yes.
Which actually documented the values of the All Blacks. So that blog actually came out today, and it's a fabulous story. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's strange. I'm not a sporty person at all. It was never in my genes. But I found that there's been some incredible writing from the sports space or performance sports space that have been really helpful for me understanding how to think about that, because, you know, the endurance of performance athletes, you know, the way they're having to train for that, to manage their energy, to know when to rest, all of that has a lot of parallels with running a high growth company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, got on my case. So of course, I'm going to agree with you on that. But, it is really fascinating. One of my recently graduated clients, 600 staff, and this is quite an unusual client for me. I sort of, it was a much larger client than I'd normally take on. And we took on $125 million worth of private equity, which of course drives a business in a very, very different way to being a private company. The decisions being made by the CEO. But, my first meeting with the two founders, I said to them, how long have you been going? I said, 8 years. I said, 8 years, and they were currently at that stage. They were at 150 staff, and I said, wow, and just 8 years. Oh, it was 8 years 2 weeks ago. Oh, right. What did you do to celebrate? And this blank look. And I said, when did you last celebrate your success? And this blank look. And it was just, we very quickly had a birthday party, and it's simple cupcakes with the number 8 on it. And when the two founders went and talked to, predominantly it was a food manufacturing company, and predominantly blue collar workers, and had a birthday party and thanked them, and the difference it made was extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So take a break and celebrate. Are you a reader?
I am indeed. Yeah. All sorts of things, the good and the bad, I will admit.
Yep. Anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, so I think, kind of following on from what I just mentioned, I don't just read sports books, but I have been reading a few of them lately. And there's two authors in particular, Brad Stillberg and Steve Magnus. They wrote a book together called Peak Performance, which was really very helpful for me about understanding performance and how to maintain it. And I've just read. No, I did read this one. The Art of Groundedness, which is the follow-on by one of those authors. I believe it's Brad Stillberg. And that's, I think we can all benefit from time to time of a bit of a reality check on how our health and wellness and groundedness as CEOs and executives impact down onto the rest of the team. So, I'm not there just to lead the strategy, but my behaviors represent what other people believe is expected of those. And so I've been reading a lot on how to maintain the growth and trajectory and the passion, but with a focus on making that sustainable for the, 10-year adventure to being an overnight success.
It's the first book you mentioned is fabulous.
It's really good.
Yeah. Look, Laura, last question. Any last piece of advice or parting words to an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur out there?
It's going to be a little bit biased towards the security space because that's what I do. Security isn't the biggest monster in the room for your company. I know that. There's going to be 20 concerns you have before cybersecurity, and that's okay. We're okay to say that. But the little tiny changes you can make in your business, even if it's silly things like choosing good passwords or making sure that you patch all of your systems or allow your browser to restart when it nags you that it needs to update, those make a huge difference. And in a growing company, security isn't about just saving yourself from cyber threats. It's about proving to larger organizations that you're safe to use and that they can trust you. So use it as a superpower, use it as part of growth. Because those little things you do might not seem significant because you haven't spent a lot of money or time, but they add up. And as your team grows and their efforts all add on top of each other, before you know it, you've grown a very big, very secure thing.
Yeah, you won't be like one of our medical insurers here in Australia recently.
It's been a bad year, but yes, absolutely. And I think we'll be feeling the ripples of that for years to come, particularly now that the legislation has changed as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sort of add an extra bit in here. So I met you through an organisation called Head Over Heels. And I'd like you just to give me 1 or 2 minutes on the organisation, why you're part of it and what benefit that collaboration with how does that collaboration work and what benefit it brings to you, and why CEOs should look to collaborate with other CEOs. Would you mind?
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem. So Head Over Heels is built upon the premise that lots of female-led founded businesses start, but scaling them and growing them is really hard because many of the female founders, much like me, we don't come from those kind of backgrounds. We don't have the connections that others might have that help them to succeed. And so it tries to even the playing field by connecting CEOs like myself with individuals, and those could be high net worth individuals, executives, connectors and powerhouses, the type of people, those people who just connect people together, and giving them an opportunity to share the mission and then ask for help. And that very explicit process of asking for help is powerful to someone like me. So if you can stand on the stage and say, hey, the thing that's going to really shift the needle for my company right now is this, and we had 90 people in the room on our day, and we had 52 offers of help at the end of that. And those offers, while they can be a little overwhelming to start with, are huge for younger companies. So whether you are a new CEO like myself and, it's scary, but you want to ask for help, that's a great avenue for that. And if you are a more experienced person or, you've got connections that could help grow a business, consider coming along, joining one of the events and see if your one connection could change an entire company's future.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's as you and I spoke before this, I was having problems finding female CEOs to interview in this series, and it just happened that a lady I interviewed was a member of Head Over Heels, and it's led to some fantastic conversations like this one. And from the collaboration perspective, given that this is all about teaching CEOs, prospective CEOs, how to be CEOs, it's been a great collaboration for me as well. So thanks for sharing that. Well, listen, last thing, I think you mentioned that you might have an offer that you might like to include.
Absolutely. So, right, here's your call to action, if you will. So SafeStack, that's my company. We have a free training plan that's available to all organizations worldwide, whether you are teeny tiny and have a big idea and a big dream and nothing else, or you're a giant organization. We do not judge. And that's going to give you free essential secure development training, security awareness training, and privacy training. There's no tricks, there's no gimmicks, there's no credit card needed, but we're on a mission to try and help enable as many businesses as we can to get started with security. Now, in Australia alone, there are 729,000 businesses with less than 25 people in them. So if this is something your company hasn't started doing yet, and you want to do just one little thing for your security, sign up, get your team on, and see if you can make 2023 the year that you embrace security as part of growing an amazing company.
Thank you, Laura. And the company's name is SafeStack.
Yep.
So that's all the contact details will be in the show notes.
Awesome.
Thank you again, Laura. I really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've very much enjoyed the conversation.